Hello, John.
Hello, Albert.
Today we're going to talk about the Garda McCabe controversy. But before we do that, you're going to read us out a message of hope.
Well, this is something that I think Sgt McCabe, that marvellous defender of what's right, it's something that he might have been hopefully aware of, and it's this. And it's something very important that one needs to have in one's mind when one is faced with struggles or difficulties with wherever one is working. God's love within you is your native land. So search none other, never more depart. For you are homeless, save God keeps your heart. That was penned, a message of hope by a gentleman in the 1800s by the name of John Bradburn, or Bradburn.
How do you spell Braburn or Bradburn?
Bradbourne.
Bradburn.
I presume he was English. He was hardly Irish. I don't think it's an Irish name.
No, I've never heard of it.
No.
Well, John, that was a very nice message of hope.
I'd say,
because there seems to be a lot of darkness in this McCabe saga.
Well, I'm afraid there was a lot of darkness because Sgt McCabe, there was a programme which was very worthwhile on RTE there last week, I think on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, after the 9 o'clock news, and it was on for an hour thereabouts on the Tuesday night and the Wednesday night. An interview with Sgt Morris McCabe and his wife, and some highlights of what he had to go through and what he was going through up until very recently. Now, I can only say, having looked at those two videos, but also following the case with some interest from the time that Morris came to the notice of the public at large. And they used the word whistleblower, which quite frankly I'm not in favour of that word. It has a negative connotation, and probably for a very good reason, that the people in charge put that name on it. It's actually somebody doing their duty and doing it properly. That's what it is, and standing up for what's right. Sgt Morris McCabe did that, and damn near paid a terrible price for that.
So what's the background of the case?
Well, Sgt McCabe was very glad to be a policeman. There was a short excerpt of when he was in Templemore, and he was full of joy and hope for the job he was doing, because he obviously had a strong sense of commitment to the Gardaí and to looking after the welfare of the citizens and the Irish people that wherever he was stationed. He was stationed initially in Monaghan, and a vacancy came up because he's from Mount Nugent, which is on the borders of Cavan and Meath. And a vacancy came up in the station in Ballyborough, and he applied for it and got that job. So he was able to then come home to where he was from. Now, so Sgt McCabe was transferred to Ballyborough as a guard, and later on he did an exam for a sergeant and was successful and become a sergeant, and still stationed in Ballyborough. And this is where his trouble began.
Okay. So what exactly was the trouble?
Well, he noticed as a sergeant that there was a lot of people who had been got for speeding And one particular notorious case that was got for speeding on many occasions, and speeding not just a few miles over it, but doing 160 in a 100 mile zone, or 100 kilometre zone, and many a time. And his summonses were squashed by a superior officer. I don't know whether it was an inspector or a superintendent. But because it was so constant and so blatant, and various other persons whose summonses didn't go to court, so he made a complaint about it. Also, funny enough, another item that irked him and was a cause of a bit of complaint was the fact that the Gardaí were often hanging around the station. And as a sergeant, he wanted them out doing their duty, but we didn't really complain about that, but that was a factor. Anyways, he
Just mind your foot there, John, at the bottom. It's going, you're okay?
He that's what he did. He complained about that. And
so they were actually hanging around the station. In other words, they didn't want to go out and do their job. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah. And they weren't going out on the beat, which really they should have been doing. And so I think that's we mentioned it earlier. I think that's a feature of the Gardaí, that for some reason or other they're hanging around the station, and then they might go out in a squad car or go along with another one, whoever's driving the squad car, instead of being out on the beat and going around the town and getting to know the people and getting to know who's who and what's what. That's the proper thing for them to do, to want to do the job properly.
I think Pat Short, the comedian, done a great portrayal of the Gardaí when he said that they sit in the station all day eating a pudding box, okay, eating a pudding box in the local chipper, and on Facebook with their smartphones.
Well, it was a comedy, but I think there's an element of truth. Because if you don't see the Gardaí in the street and you speak to people, and my father being a guard, I'd be kind of curious about to know who they are and so on and so forth. I'd have sympathy for them in the ordinary course of events, because it's a tough job, but you're supposed to do it. And part of it is to be out and get to know the people. And I think very few of these Gardaí now knows anybody. And the superintendents and people in charge don't seem to be insisting that they're out and about and doing this business of patrolling the streets, and not just in the middle of the day when there's nothing happening, in the evening time when there's liable to be antisocial behaviour, because one sees it all over the place. One sees young thugs, if you like, driving cars that might even be taxed and zigzagging along the road. Stuff like that. So Sgt McCabe also mentioned the fact that he had various other issues, and so that was the initial what he said about it. But then he kind of came under more pressure from superiors when they investigated. They sort of seemed to be kind of criticised him for doing his duty.
But also, TUSLA, the Child Protection Agency, had him on file. They said that he sexually assaulted a child, and then they later said it was a clerical error. How in God's earth would you make a clerical error?
Well, you see, Garda in Bailybury he had disciplined, along with a few other ones. That Garda, his daughter, made a complaint that she was molested in some ways by Sgt McCabe, and when it was investigated, there was found to be no truth in it. It was just, it wasn't truthful, so nothing happened.
So this could have been part of a smear campaign?
Well, it's the same one that then made another complaint, and it was the same way. It wasn't dealt with. It wasn't accepted. It was just a concocted story. And but then later on, she made another one when she was older, perhaps 18 or 19 or 20, whatever it was, and the same thing again. For some reason or another, in the Child Protection Agency, Tuzla, they had a file. Somebody then had been gone, but it was still there, and somebody then resurrected it and then put it into some kind of a system, as if like it was ongoing and if there was some truth in it. And it mushroomed from that to take on a life of its own, and so much so then that the Gardaí from the higher echelons were making allegations that Sgt McCabe was a sex maniac, that he had abused even his own children, and it was a dreadful allegation to make. And Sgt McCabe, while he was getting exonerated in some of the complaints that he had made about various issues, he was getting isolated in Ballyborough, so he got a transfer to Mullingar. But there seemed to be an orchestrated campaign against him, and a whispering campaign that he was molested children and paedophile. So
okay.
What?
Kathleen Zabone comes into this because of the Tuzla involvement. There was a time when the Taoiseach said that he didn't know anything about the Tuzla part of it until he saw it in an RTE programme. Now, this is the Taoiseach running the country. It's another example of Leo Varadkar being inadequate to lead a country.
Well, you see,
he's learning from the broadcaster.
Well, just before we go on to this, Sapone, about the worst minister for children that was ever inflicted on any country. She just forget about her for a minute. Sgt McCabe got a registered letter purporting that he was from the Tuzla, that he was under investigation for child paedophile, and his own children was put on a watch list. Now, this come as a bombshell. This was something out of the blue. This was something diabolical, and he decided to go on the primetime programme to highlight this. And this is how then subsequently Zapone made out that she had told the Taoiseach, Prime Minister Varadkar. But I mean, the business of telling was could be disputed. She had a right to put something in writing, but she didn't do that, did she? So therefore, it's her word against his, and so on and so forth. So the usual muddy waters. But she's in charge of Tuzla, so it doesn't say much for her control over that organisation that they could see fit to have all sorts of officials making this allegation and passing it on to the Gardaí. So there was a whispering campaign against poor Sgt McCabe, completely false from beginning to end. So here was corruption on a massive scale. It doesn't matter what they say was mistakes of this, that and the other, but how come a registered letter was sent to Sgt McCabe purporting to sort of say he was under investigation? Very extraordinary thing to do by a child protection agency that now makes out it was a series of mistakes. That's not good enough. If the like Sgt McCabe, an honourable member of the Garda Síochána, could be accused in such a manner with a registered letter, I mean, most of us would be frightened, and we'd be innocent. But how are you going to protect yourself if the forces of this orchestrated a campaign to destroy you? And this was quite clear from the programme that RTE did on the Tuesday and Wednesday of last week. I think it was, maybe it was the week before. So poor Sgt McCabe was in an awful situation, but he has been exonerated. And then he has resigned from the police, but he was put under terrible pressure, and it has also led to the resignation of the former commissioner, who described Sgt McCabe and the other Garda Wilson, who also made complaints, and he was destroyed as well. So these had to resign, and then eventually the Minister Shatter, the Minister for Justice, had to resign. There seemed to be an orchestrated campaign against Sgt McCabe from all quarters, including the former Sergeant or Superintendent Taylor, who was the press officer for the Garda Síochána. So the media had got some false information about Sgt McCabe, as it turned out, but they all denied it on the road. So the Carlton inquiry that exonerated Sgt McCabe, and he was ably assisted by Hubert McDowell, the former Minister for Justice, who is now a senior counsel and well able to, and he was the senior counsel for Sgt McCabe. I presume his cost would be quite astronomical, but the state will have to pay his cost, because the state was responsible for their agents trying to destroy Sgt Morris McCabe. And so then it would also then prevent any other right-thinking, law-abiding member of the Garda Síochána to stand up for what's right.
It would make you wonder, is it the tip of the iceberg?
Well, to me it is the tip of the iceberg, because there's something radically wrong in a country that sort of thing could happen to an honourable member of the Garda Síochána such as Sgt McCabe. Fortunately, his father was a great influence on him, and he's still alive in his 90s. So if it wasn't for the kind of solid support he had from his wife as well, and at times she was apprehensive, naturally, because you don't want to be involved in this type of thing and to have your good name could be smirched here and there. Sgt McCabe also had the misfortune to have to be shown on the internet colleagues that he worked over, or that he was a sergeant over in Ballyborough, with a rat in a kind of like a dummy, a big ugly looking thing, and sticking pins in it and making allegations against Sgt Morris McCabe of a sexual nature. So, I mean, this is absolutely diabolical, and if there's Gardaí of that calibre, they should be dismissed.
Absolutely.
And there should be no such thing as, by the way, another superintendent come along and exonerated all the Gardaí in Ballyborough when it was clearly they weren't up to the task, and he had to apologise. A lot of these ones were apologising after the event because they were found out.
I think I read something a while back that they're bringing in a Garda from the north of Ireland, is that?
Well, there's a new commissioner now from the north of Ireland.
A commissioner, is he?
Yeah, commissioner, yeah. And of course, you'll find Sinn Féin was against it because they're against anything that's right. And this man, to give him full credit, he visited while Sgt McCabe was belittled and tried to be destroyed by those in charge in the Garda Síochána. This new commissioner, I think Drew or something is his name, he visited Sgt McCabe in his home in Mount Nugent and spent an hour and a half there with him, and that gave great comfort to that family that finally the powers that be is giving them some recognition, and of course compensation of a very high order will be due Sgt McCabe for what he was put through. No man should be put through what he was put through. He was a self-respecting Gardaí, which what they were years ago, as my father was, and now, be goodness, they're only a shadow of what they were once. And be no harm if they come back and did their duty the way they used to do, and were seen and known by the people in the country that they're supposed to be protected.
So, are you saying that they've lost their self-respect and people have lost respect for the Gardaí?
Well, you see, I think so. And this is why people have their own security and watch, community watch and text alert and devil knows what, and video cameras in shops morning, noon and night, and a place riddled with antisocial behaviour. We see it in the towns and villages. We're lucky we're still protected because there should be Gardaí in all these stations that was closed. They shouldn't be left to the mercy of God knows who. That's why people have alarms in their houses now, because they have to try and take some steps to try and protect themselves.
We had the economic crash, okay? And the Gardaí suffered like everybody else, I mean, in terms of wages. I do know Gardaí that are struggling to survive and pay mortgages. Do you think that maybe that's part of it, that they feel that, you know, they're doing enough for getting so little?
Well, you see, they do get well paid compared to what they did. When my father was a guard one time, there was another so-called economic problem, and when there was very little economic problems, they had to take a 10 shilling reduction. Now that was substantial in them times when the pay might have been only £7 or £8 a week, and they had to provide homes. In some cases, in our case, we were provided with a home by the state because it was a Garda house. But when you're retired, then you have to vacate that, so then you do have to provide a house for yourself. So, anyways, the Gardaí, some have the difficulty that you described, but a lot of them don't have that difficulty. A lot of them seem to own more than one house. It'd be better if they owned the house that they live in, and then did their duty, and that the superiors insisted that they did their duty, which has been out in the beat. Now, it's quite clear that they're not out in the beat and doing their duty, because that's what they should be doing in the towns and villages and all the rest of it. It's not good enough that people are left defenceless. Absolutely.
The other thing is that we done a video earlier on the Gardaí, and we forgot to mention that if you go into the district court and the circuit court Monday to Friday, you can see in any of the district or circuit courts around the country, there's many of them, you can see up to 10 to 15 Gardaí waiting for their cases to be heard, and they might be there for most of the day. That seems a terrible waste, and this is mostly traffic court stuff. There has to be a better system than that.
Of course, well that's a waste of Garda time, and there should be some other system. But of course, if there's this what was evidence in Sgt McCabe's case and Garda Wilson, if that was the case there, well then it's a kind of self-evident to any reasonable person that Gardaí stuck in the courthouse all day, they're not out there doing their duty. And I don't mean driving around in cars, I mean going on the beat in the towns and that. Have cars by all means to go after the serious criminals. But if there was prevention, there'd be less crime, which there was years ago. There was very little crime and very little murders. Now they're commonplace, stabbings and all the rest of it. And so there's something not right. We don't hear of anything prevention. It's kind of when the horse is bolted, then they're doing something about it, and they're looking for evidence of what happened. But people should be protected in their own homes without having to have alarms here, there and yonder and all the rest of it. A Gardaí should be about and to be seen to be about. That's what would reassure the public. They're not reassured with what they see with the closed Garda stations and the lack of police on the street.
One thing that does demoralise the Gardaí is the fact that They catch the criminal, they bring him to court, and he gets a lenient sentence, or he gets no sentence at all, and he's set free then, and they should go catch him again.
In a small country like this, that shouldn't be. Surely when people commit crime, and we see there now where people commit numerous crimes and they're out in bail and committing more crimes, so I mean that's not a deterrent. They should find some method of people put into custody that mightn't involve all these jails with all the facilities that they provide in these jails. They're nearly like holiday camps from what one hears, except their freedom is curtailed. But they seem they can do a lot of other things. They can even study if they're fit to do it, and even apparently drugs were quite available in prison. So they should have some other method. I mean, they have armies and they can have people in custody that are a threat to society, and that should be their first duty. And the business of letting criminals out on bail, it shouldn't be something that should happen, because it means it's an encouragement to them to go and commit crime. And that's their life, that's their livelihood, and probably also getting social welfare on top of everything else. So they're not contributing to society whatsoever. And it's up to the government if to govern and govern properly.
We started off with your message of hope, John, and I think you want to finish off with your message of hope.
I do, because it's so important in this day and age when we're under pressure from all sorts of situations. And we spoke about education earlier, and the business now what poor children are going to be taught in the school, and with the fact that most of the people now are not practicing the Catholic faith or Christian faith, so they're getting no guidance in their homes. God's love within you is your native land, so search none other, never more depart, for you are homeless, save God keeps your heart. And that was penned, that message of hope, by a gentleman called John Bradburn in the 1800s. It's still relevant, and still relevant for anyone that tries to do what's right today.
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you very much, Oliver.